kind of sucks, right? This is recording.
Well, you don't like him because he's a big fan of. Like the first time he met, he went up to him and was like giving him notes and stuff.
Right.
He was like, instantly
this is
fell
recording.
into his aura. Yeah. Look, both of us said stuff that we. But I go up. I do fine. Like I don't bomb, but it's nothing to write home about, you know. So I sit down. Out of the corner of my eye, I see him raising his fist, and I'm like, oh yeah, thanks, man. I raise my fist. I look. He's just lifting his phone to send a text. But then before I can take my fist back, he's like, oh yeah, sorry, good job, man, and fist bumps me. And then I'm like, oh no. He thought that I was so good. I was like, come on, man, you gotta
give it to me, bro.
You gotta give it to me. I was like, holy fuck.
Oh my god, that's humiliating.
Yeah, and Caroline was sitting right next to him. I don't know if she saw that happen, but I was like, oh, I have to run away as soon as I can.
Oh my god. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so awkward, man. Like, it's so funny.
Because I was like, I would never unsolicited ask for one.
No, I don't even want to do it to begin with.
Yeah. I was trying to be polite. I thought you were.
I hate it. I'm like, let's stop it. Come on.
Just
handshake if I'm meeting someone is fun.
Would just be like, it's good job, you know? Yeah. If you have to say anything, be like, good job.
But please don't say anything. We're all here. I'm not like...
We know what we're doing. Yeah.
I'm not like unaware of how it's going. Yeah, no, love clock. Dude, take a look. Look what I got on my wall here. My cleanest comic.
Yeah! Let's make it. Let's make you lose that award on this episode tonight.
Oh yeah. All right, let's get into this goddamn shitty episode. Last week, okay, pilot bad. Second episode, good. I mean, not great. Weird.
By the measure of this show, yeah.
Weird, but fine.
Yeah.
This episode, bad. Like, bad episode. Bad episode of any TV show. If, like, this is a skip. This is like season 1 Office. Get me out of here. I hate it. Let's go.
Yes.
It's a Halloween episode, so I thought we could start out, like, do you have any, holiday episodes, you know? Like, holiday episodes of sitcoms or TV shows. The Office has a great Christmas episode. They do a Christmas party, Office Christmas party. A lot of people have experienced it, so it makes sense to do something like that. I can't think of a lot of other famous ones. I mean, doesn't Seinfeld have a big Thanksgiving one? There's like a turkey on someone's head.
Cheers has a big Thanksgiving. Friends has a Thanksgiving. Friends they do Thanksgiving every year. Community, theirs was Halloween every year. American Dad, I think, had a Christmas one every year. So it's like, it's very much a thing of like a
Family Guy has Star Wars.
Family Guy, Star Wars, yeah. My favorite holiday, Star Wars.
Yeah,
Simpsons famously is Treehouse of Horror, you know. Like, it's very much a thing from the network sitcom era where it was, you know, over the course of a year. So they were like, yeah, let's just do the holiday that it is to fill up the episode. Which you don't see as much anymore because it's like 10 episodes that you make, who knows, and then they'll air it at some random time. So you can't really associate it with any point of the year. So again, I understand why he wanted to do one because it's like, you wanted to make a cool network sitcom, but...
None of these people... Okay, here's a minor note. These people should be colder. The last episode was about installing an AC, and now it's Halloween.
Yeah.
Halloween's cold in New York.
Yeah.
The kids are wearing thermals under their costumes.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, so does that mean that last week was October 24th, you know? Like, the last episode was?
We missed months of time, because the last episode is mostly, the B-plot is about an AC unit.
Yeah.
So the pilot, who gives a fuck? He gets a job. But that last one was about it being hot. And now it's cold, but they're not cold. No one's wearing jackets. And I'm not like...
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to question the reality of this, because ultimately, who cares? It's a sitcom. But it is like... I always say it's the mark of like a bad show or movie or story or whatever when you're resorted to questioning the logic of it, because there's so many things that has plot holes that I don't give a fuck about because I like the rest of it, you know? But when there isn't any kind of functioning of the rest of it, I'm just like, well, come on, guys.
Yeah. I mean, this one just blows. Like, there's nothing that interesting about it. I heard in an interview Mulaney say that he was like, I wanted it to be weird. Ghosts are real in it. And this one is about ghosts, but the ghost isn't real.
But it's not
They
real.
never confirm that the ghost is real.
No, they confirm that it's not real, because at the end he's like, the ghost is gone, by the way, we have mice, and it's like, so it was mice the whole time, you know?
And then there's like a button on John's story that's like, okay, so ghosts aren't real, but John is crazy. Like, John's like a crazy psychopath.
John did steal from his grave, from the dude's cemetery. Let's go through it. I wanted to say, though, here's a fun thing, but also kind of loops into the rest of the episode of why it wasn't good. The stand-up at the beginning of the episode, I think it's a completely new bit. No part of it I had heard before. And it was good. It was really funny.
I disagree. I think I didn't love it. It's
not up to par of what we know his stand-up to be capable of, but maybe this is just me being starved for actual jokes for the rest of the show.
You and I are in an abusive relationship with the 2014 sitcom Mulaney.
Yes.
So you are just taking, he went to the grocery store and didn't forget toilet paper as a positive.
Yeah. He didn't hit me today.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mulaney, thank you. Okay, so John does, here's my note. John does lame bits up top. He talks about how Thanksgiving is not a horny holiday. I don't like that bit. But I did like the bit about how horror movie villains have, like, poorer lives.
Yeah.
Like he talks about how Dracula used to live in a castle, and then, like, the last Saw movie was in, like, a gas station bathroom.
But gas station bathroom, by the way, as soon as I heard that, I was like, that's on the alt hack list. That phrase, gas station bathroom, I've heard that so many times before. We
got to add that to the list. A list we haven't used much in the past maybe 2 years, but it's good to remember stuff like that. It's good. Aditya and I, when we were doing stand-up together in New York, we had a list of bits that were alt hack, which is just hack. I mean, it's not even alt. We're not even, because there's no alt.
In New York, it's just hack, yeah.
Yeah, there's no alt.
Maybe in Florida, though, like, you could get away. Well, you wouldn't get away with it. People still wouldn't laugh, but they would be, like, also weirded out by it.
I thought I was alt. I'm the cleanest comedian in the town.
Maybe that's alt in the South these days.
Yeah, being clean is alt. Hearing stories about what Austin is like, I am alt.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm not saying racial slurs, therefore I am alt.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I'll give it to you. The opening bit is probably the best one we've done so far. It's not a bit we've heard before. It's a new bit. He either wrote it and worked it for the show. But we talked about the opening stand-up bits enough in the first two episodes.
Yeah, I'm over that. About, like, it is what it is,
It is what it is. He's doing that. That's fine. And so I will give it to you and say that it was nice to see a bit I hadn't seen before, and it was fine. It was good. Do something traditional. He should have been in a costume. That's my only note, though. He should have wore, like, a different suit, but he filmed it all on the same day. In his little silver slick suit with his cute fucking hair.
Right. Yeah. His milky skin. It's just full
milky
supple
skin.
lips.
Oh no, I've been jerking off to Mulaney again. I gotta call my therapist. So Jane and John in the opening of the episode are carving pumpkins. They clearly stole this format from our classic sketch, Fall.
It was Autumn in New York. Was the name
Autumn in New York. Autumn in New York.
Do you think we saw this episode 10 years ago and it was just subconsciously in there when we wrote that sketch?
No, I don't think so at all. I think this show had no influence. No, I don't think this show had any influence. It's having more influence on me now because it's like every week I sit down and my girlfriend's watching the show and she's like, she literally today went, wow, another okay episode that I will never remember.
Why are you making her watch this with you?
She's just there. It's not a very big apartment. There's only one TV. So there's a moment, this is another note, Jane asks, I wonder how pumpkin carving came about. And John begins to explain it. She says she doesn't care. It's a joke. She's like, I really don't care. And then later, Oscar comes in and starts explaining something. And John's like, Oscar, I really don't care. And I just thought, what a powerful scene about the cycle of abuse.
The cycle of abuse, yeah.
So Oscar...
Yeah. Well, there was one when Motif comes out and is like, we have ghosts. And again, none of the acting is good. It's not been getting better from our three mains. But John's like giving them this you look, like this you're so stupid look. And I was just like, every appearance I've seen John Mulaney hanging out with Mike Birbiglia, that's the look he's giving Birbiglia.
You know what I was thinking too, just before we really dive into the plot of this episode, is that I think it was the show Undateable. Do you remember that show?
Yeah, with Chris D'Elia?
Chris D'Elia was like a cool guy teaching lame guys how to get laid, which is like, what was he teaching them? How to like scope out a high school?
A 14-year-old?
So you got to pretend that you're one of their parents to get in there and scope them out.
Download Snapchat. And put your birthday as 1997.
Those are deleted, right? that famous clip. But Undateable, I think, did an episode or a couple episodes where they were live. They were 100% live, where it would be, you are watching a show that is being fed live to you. Yeah. And sometimes Mulaney feels like that, because when an audience joke, like the studio audience doesn't laugh, or like something feels off, it's like, yeah, you could have redone it. Or this is the third take and you just didn't get it. You had to move on. But,
it seems very... very first take, best take, and I'm like, but it doesn't need to be, you know?
Yeah, we're not Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if they can... So, like, there's the part where they're, like, having, like, a genuine, you know, moment of like, remorse for their dead neighbor, you know? He's like, oh, man, I could have just looked at it. And, like, sincerity is just not a good look for John Mulaney. Like, he just... Even in his, like, darkest, most personal material, he's still adding bits to it because, like, he's not pulling off honest well or, like, raw or vulnerable, you know?
No,
like, he's just
not
that performer, you know? No. And so, like, him trying to be like, I'm sad this guy I never met died. I'm like, no, you're not. Even your character is not, you know?
So their gay old neighbor Oscar comes in and it says that another neighbor of theirs died. He had a notebook full of stand-up jokes he wanted John to read and give feedback on, so John kind of feels bad that he never did that. So I want to make a note about Oscar. I think this episode kind of sucks so bad that we might have to take some moments to talk about some of our supporting cast here as a whole. I like Oscar. I think Oscar should have been the roommate. Just make John live with a weird old gay man.
Yes.
Just have that.
If you want it to be weird, because already it's weird, why does Jane live with you? Motif, it's like, all right, two comics living together. I get that. Jane, I don't even know what her job is. I don't think they've said. No. And she clearly, the whole plot of her episode, not to jump ahead, but it's her trying to find her own place. It's like, how did this happen? What the fuck is she doing there?
Is she like crashing on the couch or something?
Right.
Is she like...
Yeah, where's the third bedroom?
I don't understand. But my thought also was they need like a bar scene, and if the show was going to be about like sobriety in some way, maybe they could do that.
I mean, they have not mentioned that that's a part of his character yet. They could have just, if they cut that, they could have just had him drink water that looked like vodka or something.
Either Oscar should have just been the roommate and cut down on all his roommate stuff, and my also a second thought is Motif and Jane. Just make Jane a comic. The idea that she's like annoyed that they're comics is like, but you're living with them. And they should be at a comedy club when they're talking. If you want to have a bit heavy, weird comic thing, just have them in like the back room, like a pseudo version of the back table at the Cellar. Just do that. Just get a little scene, put it in the middle of the apartment scene, and have them sit at a table and do their weird comedy bits where they all intertwine. But I think they need these other characters, I guess. There's so many people on the show to, like, kind of spread out this, like, weirdness that, like, oh, but it's so many things going on that you... Whatever. I think Oscar is an okay character. I think this show being about Oscar... John Mulaney with Oscar as his like moral backbone and Lou as like a lesson giver by being a weird person further in his career.
Well, like a lesson giver in the opposite direction here. Like Oscar's the sane one, Lou's the insane one, but they both kind of show him what's right.
And they're both like very famous actors that play these older men. I think that is a better show. I think a show about a guy who's like, and Mulaney said this in an interview. He said it was the original idea for the show was like it was about him making lists to be a better person, but it was also kind of about how there's no role models, how there's no one to look up to, and everyone, you know, you look up to a guy and it turns out he's cheating on his wife. I think that's what he says. And so I think going a little bit more stripped down, you can get some of the genuine moments that you're talking about where Mulaney can't pull off. It's like, okay, put it on these famous, well-tested actors and have that be the core of your show, because this friend group is not clicking at all.
No, there's zero chemistry, which is rough because then you get to something like in the cold open or whatever, they're doing a thing where they want to do a moment of silence, but then their phones keep going off. And it's like, maybe if they were better performers, but I think that gag is stale. Like, there's just no... I would say the verbal jokes, they're not necessarily getting better, but the lines, I'm like... The actors seem more comfortable around them. Like, the things they're saying, I'm like, all right, this could be a lesser episode of a better show. Those jokes are fine. But the gags, the, like, visual gags, the, like, comedic set pieces that rely on, like, chemistry and physical humor, those are just... If anything, they're getting worse and more hack, you know? Like, as the show goes on. And it's just not selling it. Like, it just honestly just have it them just be talking to each other.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
So Motif enters the scene in the living room and he says 3 insane things that I would like to talk about. He said he was recording himself doing his stand-up set in his room. He says he saw a ghost close a cabinet and he tells John, because John got the notebook from the old man that he should have done his jokes. Motif goes, you should do those at your next set. So I have a question for you, Aditya. Does John Mulaney do stand-up? Does he know?
We've never seen him do stand-up. Yeah.
Does he know, like recording yourself in your set, in your room and practicing, is like, maybe that's something people used to do, like, or maybe it's something you do really early on in your comedy career, but like the most tested way to do this stuff is to get out there and do it and try it and do open mics, and it's like, they're doing shows and then they're recording themselves in their room, but they're not doing like a mic or something, you know? They're not like testing.
Well, it's also like, they probably, I mean, I imagine they're on the same level career-wise, and this is like kind of inside comedy, and it doesn't really matter if we're thinking about it from a standpoint of the audience, but they're of a general audience, I mean. But yeah, it's like, if you're going to go the route of my roommate is also a comedian, where are you going to be hanging out at? Clubs, probably, which you're probably past at and doing shows regularly because you're writing for TV. Like, you have a career, you know? You're both successful enough that you don't need to record yourself. You live in New York. Go down to the Cellar. Go up to, like, the comic strip. Go up to, like, New York Comedy Club. That's 3 blocks from their apartment, you know?
Yeah. So the guy died in their building, and so they all, like you said earlier, they take a moment of silence, and then everyone's phone keeps going out. I'm like, I wish I was the dead old man in this scene, because, like, it just stunk. Just a stunk scene. And then, like, Call Me Maybe goes off, which is, like,
Oh, yeah, it's 2014 or 2012 or whatever it is, yeah.
And then, like, Oscar's like, I have to take this. Like, oh, wait, Call Me Maybe was the old guy's ringer? Oh, wow, he's gay? So John goes to work. And
should get that as a clip that we just said that.
That's a perfect half-pint, like, audio thing.
Yeah, it is.
Luke Cannon, he goes to work with Luke Cannon, who's played by Martin Short. Says he's unhappy with the writers on the staff.
Wait, but also, like, there's other writers?
I know. Yes,
what?
Yes.
I thought he was being hired as the only writer.
Okay. So their contracts are up on Halloween. Lou takes the old dead man's notebook from John's hand at the show and goes, these are great, John. Like, I'm going to use these on the show. So, yeah, just to what you said. Why is a game show host doing a monologue and jokes? Why does he have comedy writers, a staff of them? And yeah, I like the idea that, like, even Lou doesn't understand how the show works.
Yeah,
like, that's funny. I like that.
I think that's funny. But I will say there's the one weird thing about it, because I think now that you said that, I hadn't heard his quote about the Halloween episode. So it's interesting that, like, he was putting some thought into it, or there was intention into it being weird. But the downside of opening the show with actual stand-up, whether or not you like the joke or not, is that when you put in, like, different stand-up that the show acknowledges is hacky, like what the jokes that the old guy wrote are, like, John is like, well, they're not good, but whatever, it's working, you know? It's like, it established it is kind of weird, because it's like, what in this universe is supposed to be funny, right? Because in Seinfeld, for example, whether or not you think Seinfeld is funny, the jokes he's saying on stage are the exact same tone and quality as the jokes the characters are saying, you know? They're the same voice. If one thing is funny, the other thing is funny. But the jokes that John is saying on stage are, like, diametrically different from the jokes that we're supposed to buy, both in the dialogue and then the stand-up jokes that Martin Short are doing. So when it kills, it's like you're not selling it as some, like, mystical, like... Because if you wanted it to be like a ghost thing of, like, these jokes are terrible, but they're doing really well, why? Like, that's not, I didn't get that, I didn't see that. But then also, if it's just like, Lou really likes it, so I need to steal them, then it's like, I don't get why you can't just write jokes like this old guy can, you know? Like, if they're bad and hacky, write a bad and hacky joke, that's easier, you know?
Yeah,
like, I don't understand, it's a pitfall that all pieces of media that try to portray stand-up sincerely run in through, but you would think that the show written by a bunch of stand-ups, some of the best actively working, would be able to overcome it.
There's this movie, I think it has Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Is that the actress's name?
Yeah.
From Scott Pilgrim, she plays Yeah. Her and Common, the rapper Common, play stand-up comedians.
Okay, I have
but, like, it reminds me of that sometimes, where it's like, there's also that...
Live Free or Die Hard? Die Hard 4? Is that the one?
No, it's not Live Free or Die Hard. It's look up Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Common if you're trying to find what this movie's called. But she's like a alcoholic or something, and, like, she sleeps with
All About Nina.
Man, I don't know the name of the movie. Oh, okay. I don't know.
Stand-up comedian Nina Geld is good on stage but has a bad personal life. Her life takes a turn when she meets a charming man, Rafe Common. Okay, that's cool.
His name's Rafe Common in the movie.
No, his name's Rafe Hines, which is even weirder, honestly.
Hi, I'm Rafe Common. I wish I had a singular name, like Motif or Common.
You could just be Donlon.
That's so bad. It's gotta be like Whisper.
No. So you could be a stripper that is also a ghost?
I could be Dungeon. I want my name to be Dungeon, the comedian. Alright, so the jokes work on the show. Lou is like, oh, these jokes are great. And then the audience likes the joke. So let's cut to Jane. Let's talk about Jane for a little bit. Jane wants this dead man's apartment because it costs $40 a month. Oh, rent controlled. Oh, you live in New York, huh? Apartments, yeah, you get a rent controlled apartment, you're paying $15.99. Everyone saw Friends. They know they paid. How did they afford this apartment in this city? Oh, because of grandma. Anyway, I fucking hate Jane's subplots. I feel like Jane has like no purpose in this show.
They have not established any kind of character for her whatsoever. It's not clear at all what she's supposed to be. And I wrote okay, so I think it's the Elaine Sweet D spectrum, right? Both characters that are insane, but within the context of their show, their insanity is treated differently. Elaine can be insane, but she's clearly the most sane of the Seinfeld characters. Even Jerry, you could argue, like she can call him out on stuff. Sweet D's insane, she's just insane, you know, like Dennis calls her insane or whatever, right? So you can be insane, but in either sense, they're both put in a broad enough fashion that you can understand why they're doing the things they're doing. But with Jane, she's still ribbing the boys and being the smart one. But then it's like, are you insane? Like, are you the crazy ex-girlfriend from the first episode? Or are you the totally normal one from the second episode? I guess you're somewhere in the middle, but it's so unclear as to what your personality actually is.
She's like,
whether we're supposed to see what you're doing is crazy.
She's like, oh, I hate living with comics. I gotta get my own apartment. It's like, you have stolen flowers from the windowsill of your ex-boyfriend. And I don't even know what she didn't really have much to do.
She didn't do anything last episode.
And she hacked into his email. You're crazy. Like, what? Like, the comics have actually done nothing comedy-related that is annoying to you.
Well, you're the one that breaks out into a musical number multiple times in this episode.
Oh, my God. And you know what, Aditya? If that was her thing, where she's like wants to be an actress and she sings musicals all the time, and every once in a while it cuts to Jane doing a musical, I will grow to like Jane because at least it's something. And maybe it's like green beans,
it's
also
but it's
hilarious. Not steak.
It's also it's hilarious that her two character traits is that she's the crazy ex-girlfriend that's the musical theater person singing songs. Because it's like, man, there's a show that's going to do this exact thing in like 3 months.
Yeah. We're alone in an old man's apartment. Bring out some old ladies. Bring them out and start dancing. Have something happen. The purpose of that song is just that Jane is falling in love with the apartment, I guess. But then there's roaches on the... So it's like, she doesn't even want the apartment. It's just like... You just thought it'd be funny to do a song, so you all who don't write musical comedies tried to write a song, and it's like, it just didn't work. So John feels bad about stealing the dead man's jokes on the show to Lou, so he goes to confess, and this is Dan Mintz's big reveal, baby.
It was this and then Bob's Burgers right after it. That's why he got it.
So Dan Mintz is a writer for the show because a game show needs comedy writers. So he's being fired by Lou. Lou's not that bad again. Lou is Martin Short's the only good character.
Still the best part.
He's like, oh, you know, he's like, you should be honest and funny, like John. John's like a funny George Washington. And then he goes, that gives me a funny idea. And then he takes out a little voice recorder and he goes, funny character in a strange situation, possibly outer space. That made me laugh. I was like, okay,
yeah,
good joke, funny. Like stuff like that, like the irreverent humor, the like randomness of it is funny. Maybe it's because I grew up on Drake and Josh and iCarly. I just like something weird.
Yeah.
Do you think Dan Mintz told his mom that he was going to be on this show, or is this something he didn't even tell anyone?
I think, because they're all friends, you know, like, because I think Dan Levy, who like officiated their wedding, is also like a writer for this show. So it's like, and then, I don't know, like, I think they're all like just, like, they were like, oh, we all get to make a show together. Isn't this cool? And then they saw it and they were like, oh, no.
So John doesn't tell Lou the truth that the jokes were not his. So he keeps the lie going. Lou says some weird OJ joke that doesn't really make sense. It's like, okay, John likes OJ Simpson or something. So he doesn't tell him. He takes the weird Lou makes weird. Lou wants more jokes like this. So John is like, I have to find more of this old man's jokes. So he, I guess Lou like ran through an entire notebook of jokes in a day.
So John then finds another notebook in the old man's apartment, because Jane is just living there now somehow. I don't know how, like, what's going on with that, but he finds it, he gives it to Lou, and then instead of it lasting a week, he just does all of the jokes in one episode. So it's just a stand-up special, basically.
Yeah. And they have like 30 seconds to record the game show. So let's go back to Motif. They cut back to Motif. Motif's like, I'm going to record every second of my life to catch the joke. And then he's like, the Motif is just like, I feel bad for this actor. It's like Surgeon Smith or something. Seton Smith. Yeah. I feel bad for this guy because he's sitting there and him and Andre and Mulaney are watching the live, like they're watching the hours and hours of Motif just recording himself trying to catch the ghost. And he's like, this shit is addictive. I can't stop watching it. It's like the Black House of Cards.
Yeah, really. What a wild smack in the face that this is 2014.
What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? It's the Black House of Cards. Like,
because it's like because House of Cards, it's addictive, man. Nothing will ever stop that train of entertainment.
It's 2014. Nothing will stop House of Cards from keeping going on deep into the future. Oh my God! Coming right off the Me Too episode, it just all
that's. I didn't think about that.
The 20. Yeah, you keep making this point. And you're 100% right. The 2014ness of the show just keeps shining through. It's almost like seeing like the people get on the Challenger and be like, I can't wait to go to space. Lou tells John, I need 100 more jokes exactly like this by midnight tonight because it's Halloween, or you might lose your job. So John decides to use a Ouija board with Motif to try and contact the old dead man.
Again, I think could have been a visual gag that worked, where it's like, because it's John being like, you know what, there's no more books in his apartment, it's time for me to write. And then it cuts immediately to them at a Ouija board. But there's like a musical sting over it where it's a normal transition. So you realize it's the next scene. So the impact of going straight from I want to write to a Ouija board, it's lessened. And so you then realize what he's doing. But I think that could work of him being like, I should write. And it's like, him contacting the ghost to do it. Like, I don't know. That's a decent enough gag, but they keep undercutting how funny everything they're doing could be.
And Oscar's like, we buried him with a book that said jokes on it, which again, like, I don't, again, the logic of the world, like, who cares? We don't really have to get into that, but like, this old man, he wasn't a comedian, like, he was just an old man who constantly wrote
4 pages of book jokes. Yeah.
So John's like, like, in his head, he's like, I'm gonna go dig up his body and get that joke book that they buried him with because I need 100 jokes by midnight.
And then we get to that scene, and it's the same thing I was thinking with Jane, is it's like, but on what level of reality are we supposed to believe this show? And it's like, how crazy are we supposed to think they are, you know? Like, there was a contemporary review for a Community episode years ago when Community was in its first season. And now Community is known as this, like, kind of surrealist sitcom. But at the time, it was just, I guess, finding itself. And in one of the episodes, it was like a debate episode. But the subplot is one of the characters is making movies that predicts the future, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's now, like, a beloved episode of the show. But
like our hit sketch Twitter.
Our hit sketch Twitter, yeah. How many sketches in 2021 references are you going to make to it? But in the episode, I remember reading a review of the episode from a guy who wrote it when it came out, and it was like, we're really supposed to believe his movies can predict the future? Like, what? And it's funny just to read now, like, he hated the episode because of that, but it's, like, now considered one of the best episodes of the show.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't want to fall into that trap of being like, this isn't what reality is, so it's bad as a sitcom, but it's also, it's not funny. So it's like, that's why I'm questioning the reality.
Yeah.
If the jokes were selling, then I'm fine with it. Then yes. John, if you're selling your character as insane and ambitious and like crazy and malicious enough to dig up an old grave, then yeah, I'm with you. But I'm not getting that. I just get kind of sarcastic guy who doesn't know how to appear sad.
Yeah. And so every in comedy, there's like a base reality, and then you have your characters that branch off that are like weird, or like the people who are within the base reality. So it's like in this show, in a way, it's like John is in the base reality, Jane is kind of in the base reality, Motif is weird, Luke Cannon is very weird, Andre's very weird. But there's no real base reality because you can't really base anything on, so you never know how weird the weird stuff is to the people in the show.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the logic of the show.
Yeah, there's no comparison point, so I don't know what's happening. Like, there's a good joke in that grave digging scene where he shows up and he's like, why did I like, I only have 20 minutes left. Why did I stop for flowers? That's not even what this was for. Like, that's like that Simpsons joke, which is like, I knew I shouldn't have stopped for that haircut, you know? It's a worse version of the Simpsons bit, but it's still like a decent enough gag. But then again, it's like, is he an idiot? Like, are you the character, there's no clarity as to what any of these characters are supposed to be defined as.
Yeah, so, like, it just cuts from the grave to John talking to Luke Cannon, and he's covered in dirt, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? And John's like, you know, I did, like, 4 minutes of digging, and then I was like, you know what, this is really immoral, I should just come clean to Lou. And Lou's like, I admire that, John, I can manipulate you, because you spent all week trying to convince me of something. Like, wow, what a great employee. Whatever. Lou cries about his mom again.
Yeah,
like,
his
weird...
parents divorced, on Halloween. Which, who cares? Like,
yeah, like, whatever, fine, resolve your A-plot, whatever, I don't care. But then it cuts back to the apartment. So, wait, when John's talking to Lou, he was like, well, here's an idea, why don't we just start off the next show with you doing a lip sync of a hot top 40 song.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, so you're making fun of, like, the fact that it's corny to reference top 40 music, even though you just did a joke based on Call Me Maybe.
Yeah, I know, yes,
scene.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, like, maybe there's no base reality in the writer's room. You don't even know, like, what you guys are. But then John goes home and he's like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't dig up that grave.
Even if it started with good intentions, and then Motif is like, no, it was bad intentions. You wanted to steal it, you know? And it goes, they do a back and forth that would be, again, not unwelcome on like a Drake and Josh or something. It's like, oh, well, if only, you know, I'm glad I ended up good. It's like, you did this and blah, blah, blah. But the central part of it doesn't work because it's like, Motif, yes, you suggested he do his stand-up jokes as a tribute. So, like, those are, in your world, a good intention, you know? It did start as good intentions. So, I get, like you're saying, did they forget what the start of the episode was?
It's only 21 minutes long.
2 different teams writing each 10 pages of it.
I wish I could have watched this with commercials. Like,
yeah, maybe you would have forgotten too.
Yeah, I don't know. It would have been interesting to watch with commercials. You never watch, like, sometimes, I don't know why I'm admitting this, sometimes I'll watch the news on the morning of 9/11. And it'll, like, cut to, like...
like, on YouTube, you'll find...
Yeah, it's, like, a thing. Like, they played it in, like, middle school, and I've just watched it a couple times, but it'll be, like, the news, and then it'll cut to, like, commercials from, like, 2001, and it's, like, just a weird throwback. You ever see the movie Confederate States of America?
No.
So it's, like, this like, satire documentary about if the Confederacy won, and it's, like, an hour of TV on the History Channel in the Confederate States of America. And it'll cut to ads, like, it'll be an ad, like, one of the ads is like, this pill makes your slaves more subservient to you. Like, it's like Viagra ad, but it's for slaves. Anyway, that's a different thing. But the 9/11 thing is like, I wish I could have seen, like, what the hell they were doing in the cuts between, but that's just a thought about, like, rewatching.
You're saying Mulaney's kind of like the 9/11 of sitcoms.
I'm saying, yes, Mulaney, and we are his slaves. So John's like, oh, yeah, no, he's, like, doing his, like, not suspicious at all look. Like, yeah, I definitely didn't dig up his body and get his joke book. And then it zooms in on the joke book. And then the wind comes in, and the first thing on the joke book is, what if you just did top 40 lip sync songs?
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, dude, this show's so funny. I can't believe it got canceled. Like,
then also, like, so then why'd he come clean then? Because if there's this magic book that everything that comes out of it Lou loves, which isn't established, like, it would be cooler if they explicitly say, like, these jokes suck, but if you say them, then everyone likes them, you know? Like, if you want to be weird, let's get fucking weird and do that, you know? Rather than just soft imply it. Like, the problem with the show is everything that could be interesting about it, like John becoming a better person, or, like, you know, Motif's things, or Jane being, like, crazy or not. They're all just so, like, under the table. It's covered by so much standard sitcom fare that you forget that there's something else that is at least attempting to be to be executed, you know?
Again, like if the pilot was like a lesson in like doing too much, the second episode was like a lesson in like how editing and pacing and bad acting can like ruin it. But this one really feels like a lesson in like handcuffing yourself and not establishing what a base reality is, so that like when you do a weird episode like this, you have nothing to play on. We don't know who these people are. Yeah. We don't know who they are at all. So I mean, you have any closing thoughts about this episode?
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like it's a bunch of writers who know what a sitcom's supposed to look like. A sitcom of the type they're trying to make is supposed to look like, but they have no idea how to make one themselves. It's like trying to make a really classic cake that you don't realize is actually like really complicated to make just by like looking at a picture in a recipe book without actually looking at the recipe.
Yeah, it is a lot like that because, again, we talked about this last week, but shows like Master of None and Louie and Broad City and Girls were starting to come out at this time. And it's like a new way to do a comedy show. It's a single cam. It's plots about people. You can be... Like, in 2014, 2015, the overwhelming theme in comedy television was, like, drama as comedy. Like, do something that...
And it wasn't, like, tired yet. People were still interested in that.
Yeah, and so... This show is like an unfortunate result of people who hadn't gone on a limb to do something different, like the other shows that were very successful at that time ended up doing. And so it falls because it falls into those sitcom tropes and the things that people necessarily aren't as interested in seeing because it doesn't break the mold. It doesn't break the mold.